And it'd be really nice if there were a groove in here so we could sit on top of my bucket. It'd be nice if I raised this part of it so that if I already had a faceplate screwed on there, it could just drop inside. So I, don't miss an opportunity to over-engineer something, but this worked out really nicely. So I can work at this height without stooping over, because I'll be at this, when I do one of these, like I said, it takes a couple hours. Even one this size will probably take me well over an hour to glue it completely. And people always ask me, how many wedges are enough? I don't know. Knowing exactly how many are enough implies knowing how many are not enough, which is not something I'm willing to determine. Yes, sir?
When you're trying to level that out, do you put a level on the face of it?
No, not usually, because these things are cut by hand. And even if you put a level on top, the surfaces, this one is unusually actually quite flat, but a lot of them aren't really all that flat. And really the only reason to level it is I'm trying to minimize the amount of surface needed that I have to remove in order to true up the face. That's really the only reason. Like I said, if you've got one that has a feature you want to try to get rid of, then you can angle it a bit when you glue it up. But that's pretty rare. So yeah, most of the time I'm simply trying to minimize the amount I'm cutting off. So we're going to do this one right on the center, or as close to the center as I can get it. Should be right about like that. And I use, these are pretty big for a burl this size, but it'll still work. Just temporary blocks to hold it in place. Yeah, these are pretty big. And these can just sit there while I glue it. And I can turn it.
Do you want me to plug in your glue gun?
No thanks, not just yet, not quite there. So I get this close. Yeah, I need smaller blocks for one this size. I'll use these. Oh, that's much better. Yeah. And that's pretty decent. I'll go with that. So when you start, you can start with the small strips if you want. It can also be handy to start with some of these, like when you're trimming one of these, cut off about an inch or so of it. These can be a good way to start deep inside because it's difficult to get your fingers down inside there for one thing, and it's also difficult to make this thing stand up when you're going way down in there and you want to stand it up in there. If you start with one like this, this isn't going to fall over. It's going to have very, very little physical contact with the burl, because no burl is ever going to be that straight. So when you push it in, push it till it contacts, and then just leave it there. But you can glue it in. It won't fall over, and it gives you a vertical face that you can then start building the wedge with. And you can probably see that that's what I did for almost every one of these. Is this good? Right in there? By the way, that tip gets really hot. Burned myself on it yesterday. For the first one of these, you don't have to be very precise. You just want some glue on there. Slide it in until it stops. Now the glue's already set. There. I might start just cutting 3 or 4 different sizes. I'll cut some small ones, I'll cut some medium-sized ones, I'll cut some long ones, and I'll custom fit them on here, which will probably save me a lot of time over trying to maintain all these little bitty pieces in sorted order, which I still have to tweak with this to get it to fit. So I think I'm going to change how I do that, because dropping that box, I scattered all of them twice all over the floor. And language got very creative that day. It was bad. All right. So now we need to try to find one that'll fit behind this one. And that needs to be a little longer. And you can see why I will not be gluing up all of one of these tonight as a demo, because this is not fun to watch. I figure I'll glue in 2 or 3 of these strips, and then you'll have the general idea. Okay, I think that will work. Now for all the subsequent ones, I apply the glue at the base of the previous one. So I've discovered if I don't do that, if I put glue at the bottom of this and then reach in, I end up leaving a slug trail. And then there's no glue left to go onto the previous piece. Always work from the center out. True. Yes, sir. Yep, coming off again. Okay, always work from the center out. If your line isn't all that straight, it doesn't matter. What matters is the wood goes, it's glued to the board and to the burl and to the previous piece. Because you want to get as much strength in this as possible. By the time you glue up one of these things, it looks like a bunch of drunken spiders have partied all night under there. Okay, take a little bit off this corner. And that will slide in there quite nicely. Sometimes, especially with the ones that have the spikes like that, there might be a single spike in the middle that's in the way. I will actually take one of these, put it on the edge, and make a notch. So the notch can then go over the spike so that the wood can go flush up against the previous piece. Yes. This is a dual temp gun and dual melt sticks. You always want to use the high temperature because it's stronger. And when I'm doing one like this size, I can go through 3 sticks this long, gluing one of these up. Like sometimes I go in the house for a while, sit down and come back later and glue some more. Okay, do you want me to glue some more of these, or have you seen enough? Seen enough? So I'm not going to do a whole lot of turning on this. The turning process of these things is pretty slow because they are so very hard. And because when it comes to turning these things, I am a coward. I don't know how fast is too fast. Like I said, the articles I read had very little on detail. Always a good idea to at least begin with the tailstock up. And like I said, these things are hard. They do not cut all that well at all. The first time you turn on one of these, turn the speed all the way down. And if you're going to sight down it to see how well you've screwed up the face, turn it off. I must say, I did a fine job of gluing this one up. And it was also cut very nicely, which certainly helped. That's already almost true, except for the marks of the chainsaw itself. That is pretty good. You can use a bowl gouge, which I will start with. But this kicks like a mule. And it bounces off of this so much that I have a difficult time trying to hold the tool still. And it reflects in the surface.
Just out of curiosity, have you tried the carbide tools?
I only have one. I have an easy wood hollower, which would not work in this case. I must confess, the tool I prefer to use is this scraper. Turning a bowl with a scraper.